discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Tonight, we're talking about women's health, but men, this conversation is for you too. We have information that your wife, mother, daughter, or any other woman in your life needs to know. Now, let's face it, as women, we take care of everyone else but ourselves, but we cannot be all things to everyone who matters to us if we're not healthy. And becoming healthy starts with your yearly checkup. But do you make the most of that time with your doctor? Do you know the right questions to ask? Here to give us some help is internist Dr. Indy Jones, Dr. Margie Corney, who specializes in obstetrics and gynecology, and Angela Riddicks, who uses the resources of her company to encourage healthy lifestyles for women. Welcome to Another View, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to start with the two doctors because with all of the issues surrounding health care and whether or not people have insurance and so forth, are people even doing their yearly checkups as much as you'd like to see them? Indy, Dr. Jones.
Well, no, that's fine. I think what I see in my practice is mostly acute complications of chronic diseases, and when I send these patients out for follow-up, a lot of times they don't have primary care physicians. So I am of the belief that no, they're really not going to their yearly or their semi-annually or quarterly, depending on what kind of conditions they have to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Because they can't afford it?
Yes.
Is that a major issue?
Yes, affordability as well as a lack of education and knowledge as to the importance of it as well.
Okay. What about you, Dr. Corney?
Well, I think that women do kind of scrimp on a lot of things, but as far as their annual examination, they're pretty conscientious about maintaining that appointment. Mm-hmm. And they try to make sure they get in to do their pap smears. Women are very, very interested in taking care of themselves.
That's a good thing then, because women have to take care of everyone else, so they've got to take care of themselves first. Now, Angie, your company deals more on the medical technology side, if you will, but yet you reach out to the community with a wellness celebration, which we're going to talk about more in detail, but your whole goal is to get people to do preventive.
Exactly. We do a lot of work for the federal government as well as local and private sector, helping providers, helping healthcare administrators, et cetera, understand the policies and rolling that out. In doing that, it is very apparent that healthcare costs are driven up by chronic health issues not being addressed. Prevention is the key to that. So just as Dr. Jones mentioned, when she sees patients, she's seeing them when they're at the point of having an attack, if they have asthma, for example. And oftentimes, because of the lack of prevention, it costs so much money. Oftentimes, that's in an emergency room situation. Mm-hmm. And certainly, that's not the way to take care of yourself long term. So we do much in the community, on our community outreach side of the company, to educate the community. One way we do that is through healthcare academies, where we target the youth to combat youth and obesity.
To talk about ways to stay healthy all along,
that's
so that you develop those habits early on.
Correct. And so with the Women's Wellness Celebration, that's the other end of it. So this whole spectrum of the youth having an understanding, but who guides the youth? The mothers in the household. And oftentimes now we're not in the household like we used to be. Therefore, we're running and ripping, and we don't quite know what's on the dinner table. We don't quite know what they've done for activity. This day, this Women's Wellness Celebration, is really in honor of Women's History Month. That we're able to embrace ourselves, that we have an understanding of what we need for our mental health. So there are tracks related to healthy communications. We're partnering with Virginia Conflict Resolution Center around that. And then the physical health. So understanding reproductive health, and Dr. Corney will be joining us for that discussion, where we'll discuss from understanding the youth.
From the top of the head to the bottom. There you go. And we'll talk more in detail about the conference in just a second. But I want to get to, for the women who are watching tonight and the men who love them, from your perspective, first of all, what are the key questions that someone should always ask when they go in for their general checkup, yearly checkup?
Well, that's a very broad category, but I think it falls under two key arms in order to answer that. And the first thing is knowing your family history. That is so key. You know, I have the advantage, or maybe the disadvantage, of being the youngest of 6. So I've seen some of the health challenges that my siblings have had and know what may or may not be in store for myself. The second component to that is knowing your body, being in tune with your body, any symptoms that you may be experiencing, which may be attributed to an underlying disease or maybe not. So when you go to your doctor, a couple of the passions that I have, and I think, you know, just when you first enter the clinic and the nurse takes your vitals, okay, you need to know, what is a normal blood pressure? The textbook would tell you less than 120/80. Amongst the African American females and the African American population at large, that's a hard goal to attain if indeed you have the disease hypertension or high blood pressure. But you need to work with your physician and say, okay, am I borderline? You know, is my blood pressure good? Do we need to talk about lifestyle modifications, or do we need to start thinking about medication?
Okay, so blood pressure is, is a key one that we need to pay attention to.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
You want to ask your physician, what is a normal cholesterol? When was mine last checked? And if it's off balance, again, are there lifestyle modifications? Do I need to be on medication, and how often do I need to check up on that? So you want to ask about that. You want to ask your physician on my basic blood work that more than likely they will take, what's my blood sugar? Do I have a family history of diabetes? You really want to be in tune with that and ask your doctor about symptoms or signs that you may be leaning towards that.
Because when you look at those three areas, and you're talking about heart disease, you're talking about what are the other diabetes,
yes,
and
high cholesterol,
which
goes along
leads
with
to
obesity,
stroke, right? And obesity,
right?
Okay,
They're all like first cousins, and they all work hand in hand. And what I see, like I said, in my daily practice, I'm hospital based, is that I see a lot of complications where you have end organ damage, because a lot of times these disease processes are silent killers. You don't have any symptoms. You may or may not. Some symptoms that you may encounter, and they overlap with a lot of these conditions, is headache. You may have blurred vision, numbness, tingling. In the case with diabetes, you may have excessive thirst or hunger, and you're losing weight, but you have a good appetite. So these are some of the warning signs that there's something not quite right.
Okay. Let me ask you the same question, Dr. Forney, from a, excuse me, a gynecological perspective. And we're talking about women in general, not so much in terms of childbearing at this point, before you rear. But what are the key questions that women need to ask? I know pap smears are one, but what else?
Well, when you come to see a gynecologist, it's a comprehensive evaluation. It might be the only opportunity that a woman has to see a doctor. A lot of patients do not have a primary care doctor. They use that obstetrician gynecologist as their primary contact to a physician. And so it's a golden opportunity for us to identify a lot of serious medical problems, like hypertension. We don't always do screening for diabetes, but sometimes just by taking that urine specimen, we're able to find out whether or not there potentially is a problem with that person's blood sugar and therefore diabetes. It's an opportunity for us to reinforce how important it is to take your medicine, to take time to take care of yourself, to make sure that you follow up on appointments that you might have missed with your general internal medicine doctor. And maintaining your antihypertensive medication is extremely important. It's one problem to be identified as having hypertension. Another one is to maintain the medicine and the appropriate medication on top of that.
Absolutely, to make sure that it's actually working properly.
Absolutely.
But if a woman is very concerned about issues specific to women from the gynecological perspective, what else besides the pap smear should they examine? Or
Well, you know, a lot of times I'll see patients and they're asking about their sister and their daughter.
but not about
when should I
themselves.
bring my daughter? When should she have the human papillomavirus vaccine?
Okay. And what's the answer?
The answer is that that's a personal decision, whether or not you want to have the human vaccine, the human papilloma vaccine. But it's also a question you would ask of your pediatrician, because that's the time frame that we would consider giving that vaccine would be an elementary age. So 9, 10, 11, 12. Long before that patient's going to be coming to see a gynecologist. So many things. I mean, women come all the time and they ask, well, I've heard about this CA-125, which is a way to determine whether or not a person has ovarian cancer. ovarian cancer is a very difficult type of reproductive cancer to identify. It's usually identified real late in the stage of the disease process. And so you hear about these things on the internet. Women talk to each other about things that they think are significant. And this test is not really the test to do in order to identify ovarian cancer.
Let me go back to a point you just made, though, and I direct this to both of you. People look on the internet all the time. You see commercials for every kind of drug, for every kind of disease I've never even heard of before, that women, you know, they're focused towards women. But when women come in to see you, do they ask you about those issues, or do they kind of self-diagnose, or do they sit there as one? There's a public service announcement that's out now where the young lady's in the restaurant and she's asking all these questions, you know, is the meat rare, can I have vegetables, can I do this, and then they have her seated in a doctor's office and she says nothing. She doesn't ask the question.
It's a difficult question to answer.
I think it runs the gamut.
Yeah.
You see all types, all personalities, and from my perspective, I like to empower people because that's what knowledge is. It's power, so that they can better take care of themselves. But you want to direct them to the appropriate resources and shape and frame some of the false information that may be out there that they're taking and running with, and let them see how it may or may not pertain to their particular case.
You also might want to take that information that if you have a problem that you diagnose in the office, well, I'm going to give you this information for you to read. I want you to read about what you can on the internet, and then you're going to bring this information back to me, and we'll have a discussion about it. So it gives the patient a little bit more of an ability to get a more comprehensive view of a particular topic, and then to kind of narrow down when you talk to them in perspective to their particular problem.
When women come to see a doctor, usually, like you said, there's always an issue that's already going on. I think a lot of women will say, well, I've had this headache for, you know, a week or so or whatever, but I always get headaches, so that's not a big deal. How do you convince women that they need to pay attention to symptoms that may seem not so important?
For me, I go to the extreme. You know, I talk about the consequences of things going unchecked. So, for example, you may have this headache because your blood pressure is 180, you know, over 100. We need to look into that. We need to look into your level of stress and what we can do about it. I think patients don't understand the long-term consequences of stroke, of heart attack, where women present very atypically, and especially when they're postmenopausal, when they're more at risk because they lose their estrogen. They don't understand that their high blood pressure and their uncontrolled diabetes can lead to kidney disease, and they'll be on dialysis, hooked up to a machine 3 times a week. That's no quality of life. So I try to let them see that this is important. You know, these are extreme cases, but I deal with these extreme cases every day, and we don't want you to get to that point. And that goes back to the preventative medicine.
I think the education is extremely important. It is really important because there's so many women and people in general that have problems, chronic problems and family problems that I have hypertension and I'll take a pill. It'll get better. But that's not the problem. The problem is the consistency of keeping this particular illness under control because of the outcome.
So have your practices changed then, that you try to teach people not about the pill, but about ways to make it so that you don't have to take the pill? Because I think a lot of people have that attitude that give me a pill and I just run with it. Or
they'll take it and it starts working and they stop. It's like,
right.
Where's the logic with
that? It's a temporary thing. So all I need to do is take it temporarily. You know, I think that as far as being in private practice, you see patients year after year after year sometimes. Sometimes I've had patients that I've known for 20 years. And it's an opportunity to grow old with the patient, but also to get in the ground level.
So that you know what their history is and you can follow
and they expect
that through.
At this point in time, people expect to come into the office and to have this moment to talk to me about their health care. And what can I do to make my life better? And
Angela, what are you hoping then through this wellness celebration, which is on March 20th?
Right.
It's at Old Dominion University, and it's from 10 to 3.
10
correct?
to 3, correct.
Okay. So there will be doctors there. There will be healthcare specialists and so forth. What do you hope that women will gain out of coming to this event?
Gain the confidence to have the discussion. I think when we say, why do you think women come into the doctor's office and they don't even ask any questions? And I think oftentimes people feel threatened. They feel intimidated that you're the MD. Who am I? I don't know, anything. But there's information out there. Now, the problem is there's misinformation out there also. But oftentimes we're not discussing this in the household. This is not regular conversation. When you hear about health, you often hear about fitness, and that's more for vanity. It's not for health care. I mean, it's not to...
it enhances health care,
right.
but that's not the end-all, be-all.
I'm saying the conversation, the spin for the conversation is about vanity, not about preventing chronic health.
So that I can. Yeah.
And so, even if you fit in that dress, do you have diabetes? And are you treating it? Because the dress might be here longer than you're going to be here if you don't do something about that. And so the focus of the Women's Wellness Celebration, and we're calling it a celebration because it is about celebrating who we are as women, our responsibilities, making sure we are of sound mind and body so that we can provide for our families and that we can provide for our communities. And so it's an opportunity for women just to share that day together. We have massage therapists that's going to be there. We have health screeners. So it's not a health fair. What it is a conference of sorts, but it's entertainment. We'll have entertainment throughout the day. There's sessions. There are 5 tracks that women can choose from, over 20 speakers, and so you walk away
and in
really
full
with
disclosure, I have the pleasure of serving as MC.
Yes. So we have the absolute best of the best. And so if they change one habit after that day, then I think we would be successful. If they learn one thing that empowers them to go to the physician's office and understand, here's my list of questions and I'm taking ownership for my life, so that I can be there for my husband, my child, my mother. Oftentimes we're in sandwich generation where we're taking care of our parents and taking care of our teenagers, etc.
Let me ask all 3 of you, do you think that there's also kind of, especially as people get older, once upon a time there was this thing where you never questioned the doctor. You did not ask any questions. You just accepted whatever. When you said come in with your list of questions, if you have an ideal patient, would that patient come in with a list of questions, and are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, and that does happen. And we encourage it because it might be a one visit per year that you have an opportunity to to complain about everything and to tell the doctor about anything you want to and ask questions. And so it is extremely important. And I think it's a good idea because it kind of narrows the focus down what you need to talk about. So I can say, what's next on your list?
Okay, so that you don't forget also some other things. So that's the key thing.
I agree. It used to be the priestly model, where the old school of thought was, I am the doctor, but we're getting away from that. And you still have some of those old schoolers around, but you have to find the right fit, the physician who's qualified and who fits your personality that's willing to work with you.
So if you could talk to every patient in the world out there and say, here's what it takes to be an ideal patient so that we can work together, what are some of the things that you would tell our audience so that they can make the most of that time?
Okay, I would tell them to, again, be in tune with their body, know their family history, come to their appointments with any pressing concerns. Of course, we can't address everything, but what are the 3 most important things that are bothering you today, and whatever else we can't get to, we'll get to it the next time. Trust me, help me be a partner in this so that you can be a champion of your health, your mental, physical, and spiritual health. So that's
I like that, trust you. That's key. What do you think about that?
I think that's very important because you would think that it would be imperative or it would be innate that obviously this patient is coming to you, so they made a decision to come to you, but sometimes they have so much awe for the doctor that information is not delivered because they're afraid to communicate it to you. So I ask a lot of questions, and I always try to give the patient an opportunity to say, do you understand where I'm coming from? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Is there anything what I've just said that maybe is not clear to you?
And they really need to answer you. You're not just saying that
no,
to
that's
say
a question that's asked. And I think that a little bit of a lull in the rhythm and the routine of the examination is enough to allow the patient to relax a little bit and therefore kind of express themselves. But it's always important to have the questions written down if you can, because It's always going to happen that somebody's going to forget something, but there are some important things that need to be discussed at an annual gynecologic visit. Are you maintaining your mammograms? Do you need to get mammograms scheduled? Did you have your pap smear? Is your pap smear up to date? Why haven't you been here in 2 years? What's going on? Well, I couldn't afford to be here. Well, next time, maybe look into seeing how we can get you here for your examination in spite of the fact that it might be difficult. This is important. So this is one of those things you need to maintain. So, and just, I think, having the patient feel comfortable with you as a physician. If you can't talk to your doctor, then you don't have, that shouldn't be your doctor.
Okay. And believe it or not, we are just about out of time. Angela, I do want to talk once more that the Women's Wellness Conference is the 20th of March at Old Dominion University, and from 10 to 3.
That's
and
correct.
people can go to the website, I believe we have it up, so that they can register.
That's
correct? Okay. Thank you, ladies, so much, because I think people need to be reminded that it is a partnership. And that's the best way to make it work. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much. And when we come back, ways to increase your health and well-being through healthy eating. But first, here's what's happening in Hampton Roads. Welcome back. Experts say one simple way to improve our overall health is to look at our diet and make better choices. For example, water beats out coffee or soda hands down. And natural organic foods are much better for our bodies than their processed alternatives. Our Lisa Godley recently spent some time with a Hampton couple who's been teaching this information for years. In fact, Jeff and Gigi Fikes are known across the region for helping people make that healthy connection.
Now this is organic whole cane sugar. It is, if you notice the color, is brown and not white. When you get normal white sugar, it is refined and all the nutrients are stripped out. Whenever you eat things from nature, they're complete.
Jeff and Gigi Fikes are on a mission to educate people about the choices they make and to offer healthy alternatives. For example, steering away from foods high in acid and eating foods high in alkaline.
Basically, the pH tells us whether we're dead or alive. We really want to make sure that we have a good pH balance. 3.0 pH would mean that someone's highly acidic. Can of soda, 3.0.
People drive to the Healthy Connection in Hampton from all over the region to get information, advice, and of course, to visit the couple's No Ice smoothie bar. Gigi Fikes is a certified natural health professional and herbal consultant who studied the problems we face for years and as a result has been designing roadmaps that people can actually stay on and be healthy.
Oh, we're in a city that is, 33.7% obese? New Orleans is number 1, I believe, and we're number 2. Hampton Roads is number 2 on the obesity chart. That's not just men and women, that's children as well.
But our whole key is really to help the community make healthy choices, because we know that this is a big advantage to the healthcare situation. Just think about it. If everybody did what was right or healthy, they'd go to the doctor less. Because a lot of times they come in, like I told you, with half foot in the grave, expecting us to raise them from the dead. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. So it's lifestyle, that's the key.
One way the Fikes help their customers is by offering them a bio-survey with the aid of this machine. It functions a lot like a lie detector, measuring how your body responds to various stimuli. Once it's done, it shows you just how many of your biomarkers are out of range. I had 50. According to my results, the majority could be brought into range by taking a multivitamin or minerals. It really surprised me at just how accurate it was, because unbeknownst to Jeff or Gigi, I'd stopped taking my multivitamin during the winter months and started taking just vitamin C in an effort to ward off colds. And according to my bio survey, I really needed the multivitamins that my body was missing.
So basically we're finding out what your body's lacking. Usually we find that allergens start with deficiency in minerals, but 99% of us are deficient in minerals anyway. So once you begin a very good quality and hopefully a 100% whole food vitamin supplement with minerals, you'll probably get your body back in balance. Doctors are into illness, we're into health. We should call that sick care instead of health care.
The Fikes say their job is to educate so people will make better choices. Choices that, from the continuous restocking of shelves and numerous loyal customers, appear to be working. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And that's our show for this evening. We invite you to visit our website, www.anotherview.tv, and sign up for our e-newsletter, a once-a-week reminder of upcoming show topics. Next week, they say clothes make the man or the woman. So in today's society, are we too casual? Great discussion next week on Another View. See you then.